On a misty autumn morning at Horse Guards Parade, a historic courtyard steeped in centuries of British tradition, an ordinary day of ceremonial duty turned into a heart-pounding confrontation that no one saw coming. Sergeant James Harrington, a 28-year-old Royal Guard with 8 years of military service, stood at his post, his scarlet tunic catching the first rays of sunlight. To the gathering tourists, he was a picturesque figure: polished buttons, crisp creases, and unwavering stillness, a living emblem of the monarchy's storied past. But beneath that iconic uniform beat the heart of a combat veteran, a man whose 2 tours in Afghanistan's Helmand province had forged him into something far more than a ceremonial statue. As cameras clicked and visitors marveled at the horses in nearby stables, a masked figure in a dark coat emerged from the crowd, their stillness a stark contrast to the bustling scene. With calculated intent, they unleashed a combat knife, its serrated edge spinning through the air toward Harrington's chest, aimed to pierce not just flesh, but the very traditions he embodied. The attacker, a young man in his 20s driven by a belief that these guards represented oppression, was certain this act would echo through history. Yet, in a breathtaking flash, Harrington's hand shot up, his white glove snagging the blade mid-spin, mere inches from its target. The crowd gasped, some mistaking it for a rehearsed stunt. But this was no performance. It was the raw instinct of a soldier trained for war. His reflexes, honed amidst ambushes and sniper fire thousands of miles away, turned a moment of chaos into a testament to the guard's readiness. This dramatic clash wasn't just a random act of violence, it was a collision of ideals, rebellion against tradition, met by the unyielding strength of duty. Harrington's swift action, catching the knife with the precision of a battlefield survivor, shattered the attacker's illusions and revealed the truth. These guards are not relics, frozen in time, but active duty warriors, their ceremonial roles underpinned by real combat skills. As he pivoted to face the threat, calling out, "Security breach! Armed assailant, southwest corner." With a calm born of experience, Harrington proved that tradition and readiness are not opposites, but allies, woven together in the fabric of his uniform, a fabric stronger than any blade. In the historic expanse of Horse Guards Parade, where the cobblestones have borne witness to centuries of tradition, Sergeant James Harrington stood as a silent sentinel, his scarlet tunic a beacon of discipline amid the morning mist. At 28, with 8 years of military service etched into his being, Harrington was no mere ornament for tourists' cameras. His stillness was not a pose, but a testament to the power of military discipline, a skill honed through 2 grueling tours in Afghanistan's Helmand province. It was this discipline that allowed him to stand ramrod straight for hours, eyes fixed forward, even as a dark-coated figure circled the crowd with menacing intent. 4 years earlier, a similar stillness had preceded an ambush that claimed 2 comrades, a memory that sent a chill down his spine, yet left his face impassive. When that figure, later revealed as a masked attacker, unleashed a combat knife toward his chest, spinning through the air with deadly precision, Harrington's instincts kicked in with the force of a coiled spring. His white-gloved hand darted up, catching the blade mid-flight just inches from his heart, a movement so seamless it seemed almost choreographed. This was no fluke. It was the culmination of countless hours of training, where focus under fire became second nature, where the ability to hold position amidst chaos saved lives. In Afghanistan, he'd learned to spot threats in crowded marketplaces, to calculate trajectories in milliseconds, skills that now turned a ceremonial post into a battlefield triumph. The uniform isn't a costume, his training officer had once told him. It's armor against everything that threatens what we stand for. And in that moment, Harrington proved it true. His voice cut through the crowd's screams, "Security breach! Armed assailant! Southwest corner!" With the calm authority of a soldier who'd given orders amid gunfire. This wasn't just about catching a knife, it was about the strength born from standing still, a paradox of motionlessness that concealed readiness to act. As he pivoted to face the fleeing attacker, rifle in one hand and captured blade in the other, Harrington embodied the Royal Guard's unspoken truth. Their discipline isn't for show. It's a weapon, forged in war and wielded with precision, proving that stillness can be the mightiest force of all. Amid the morning bustle of Horse Guards Parade, where tourists marveled at the Royal Guard's stoic splendor, Colonel William Ashford stood apart, not in uniform, but with a vigilance that 30 years of military service had etched into his very soul. At 70, retired from active duty, he'd swapped his medals for a civilian jacket. Yet his eyes, sharpened in the deserts of Iraq and the mountains of Afghanistan, missed nothing. Beside him, his 7-year-old grandson, Thomas, tugged at his sleeve, asking, "Grandpa, why doesn't he move?" Kneeling gently, Ashford replied, "He's carrying the weight of history, son." His voice soft, but resonant with the authority of a man who'd once commanded troops under fire. As he spoke, his gaze tracked a dark-coated figure lingering at the crowd's edge, unnaturally still. A stillness he'd seen before, in war zones 7,000 miles away, signaling danger. When that figure's hand stayed buried in their coat, gripping something unseen, Ashford's instinct screamed. He guided Thomas behind a stone pillar, whispering, "Stay here," his tone leaving no room for debate. He flagged a security officer. "That person in the dark coat, something's off." But the young man dismissed it with a smile. Just another tourist. Ashford knew better. He'd survived too many ambushes to ignore his gut. When the figure erupted into violence, pulling a mask and hurling a knife at Sergeant Harrington, Ashford's battlefield reflexes took over. "Down!" he barked, shielding Thomas as the blade spun through the air. Harrington caught it, but the attacker bolted until Ashford, with agility defying his years, extended a foot in a move honed through decades of close-quarters combat training. The assailant sprawled across the cobblestones, breath knocked out, mask slipping to reveal youthful skin. As security swarmed, Ashford stood watch, his arm around Thomas, meeting Harrington's eyes in a silent nod of shared understanding. Two soldiers, one retired, one active, united by vigilance. Later, he told the attacker, "That guard caught your knife because he stood on battlefields where blades killed." His words heavy with the memory of fallen comrades. For Ashford, the uniform might be gone, but the duty remained. A grandfather protecting his grandson, a colonel safeguarding the innocent. In that courtyard, his vigilance proved that a soldier's watch never truly ends, transcending time, rank, and even retirement. Beneath the golden autumn sun at Horse Guards Parade, where tradition stood tall in the form of Sergeant James Harrington's scarlet tunic, a fierce clash of ideals unfolded, turning a ceremonial moment into a battleground of belief. Harrington, a 28-year-old Royal Guard with 8 years of combat experience, was more than a tourist attraction. His uniform embodied a legacy of service forged in Afghanistan's brutal conflicts. Yet, to the dark-coated figure lurking among the crowd, he was a symbol of something darker. Colonialism, oppression, a relic of an empire built on suffering. This young man in his 20s, later unmasked as the attacker, saw the guards' polished buttons and unwavering stance as propaganda, declaring, "These uniforms, these ceremonies, all built on the suffering of others." His voice rose with bitterness, cutting through the reverent hum of tourists as he accused the guards of protecting empty symbols while real injustice continues unchecked. With a combat knife drawn and hurled toward Harrington's chest, he aimed to shatter that tradition, shouting, "The world will remember this day," a defiant cry for freedom from what he saw as tyranny. But Harrington, catching the blade mid-air with battle-honed reflexes, countered not just with action, but with words. This uniform has been soaked with the blood of real soldiers, men I served with, men who died wearing it. His voice carried a quiet disappointment, not anger, as he faced the restrained attacker, ribbons of valor glinting on his chest. Colonel Ashford, a 70-year-old veteran watching nearby, added weight to the rebuttal. That guard caught your knife because he stood on battlefields where blades killed, not for statements, but for survival. Having commanded men like Harrington for 30 years, Ashford saw the attacker's military training 6 months before he'd abandoned it, and challenged him. You should know better what that uniform represents. The attacker spat back, unmoved. Pretty speeches don't change what these institutions stand for. Yet Harrington replied, neither does violence against those who serve. In this tense exchange, two visions collided, one of rebellion against perceived oppression, the other of duty, honoring sacrifice. As the attacker was led away, defiant still, the clash lingered, a stark reminder that symbols are battlegrounds too, where history's weight meets the fire of dissent, and where service stands firm against the blade of ideology. In the serene glow of a London morning at Horse Guards Parade, where tourists gathered to capture the timeless spectacle of the Royal Guards, chaos erupted with the flick of a masked attacker's wrist, transforming a peaceful scene into a crucible of heroism. Sergeant James Harrington, a 28-year-old guard with 8 years of military grit earned in Afghanistan, stood at his post, his scarlet tunic a beacon of tradition. As cameras clicked, a dark-coated figure, later revealed as a young man in his 20s, unleashed a combat knife, its serrated edge slicing through the air toward Harrington's chest, a calculated strike meant to disrupt centuries of duty. The crowd dissolved into pandemonium, screams piercing the air, parents shielding children, bodies stumbling in a frantic retreat. But Harrington's focus never wavered. With the precision of a combat veteran, his white-gloved hand flashed upward, snagging the blade mid-spin just inches from its mark, turning a deadly arc into a moment of triumph. "Security breach, armed assailant, southwest corner," he called, his voice steady as steel, directing security with battlefield calm while clutching both knife and rifle. As the attacker bolted, Colonel William Ashford, a 70-year-old retired officer with 30 years of service, sprang into action. Watching with his grandson Thomas, Ashford had already sensed the threat, shielding the boy behind a pillar with a barked, "Down!" When the assailant fled, Ashford's instincts, honed in Iraq and Afghanistan, kicked in. He deftly tripped the man with a foot placed just right, sending him crashing to the cobblestones. Security swarmed, but it was Harrington's swift advance and Ashford's timely assist that had quelled the storm. As the dust settled, the crowd, once scattered in terror, erupted into applause. Not the polite claps of a ceremonial display, but a roaring ovation for courage laid bare. Harrington returned to his post, rifle in hand, eyes forward, the embodiment of resilience, while Ashford cradled Thomas, whispering, "That's what it means to stand guard." Together, they turned chaos into order, their heroism a vivid testament to the Royal Guard's unspoken creed. Duty prevails, even when blades fly. In that courtyard, amid the echoes of panic, their actions painted a portrait of valor. Two soldiers, one young, one seasoned, standing firm against the tide, proving that true heroism shines brightest when the world unravels. At Horse Guards Parade, where the morning sun cast long shadows over cobblestones steeped in history, a single act of violence peeled back the polished veneer of ceremony to reveal the profound meaning of standing guard. Sergeant James Harrington, a 28-year-old Royal Guard with 8 years of service, stood in his scarlet tunic, a figure tourists admired for tradition's sake. But when a masked attacker hurled a combat knife toward his chest, its blade spinning with lethal intent, Harrington's response transcended pageantry. Catching it mid-air with a white-gloved hand, He proved that beneath the uniform lay a soldier forged in Afghanistan's crucible, where discipline and sacrifice were not ideals but lifelines. Colonel William Ashford, a 70-year-old veteran of 30 years, watched with his grandson Thomas, his instincts alive despite retirement. Spotting the threat early, he shielded the boy and later tripped the fleeing assailant, showing that standing guard is a duty unbound by age or uniform. As the crowd's applause rose, not polite, but raw and heartfelt, Harrington returned to his post, eyes forward, while Ashford told Thomas, "That's what it really means to stand guard." This wasn't just about stopping a knife, it was a living lesson in what guardianship truly entails. A blend of unwavering stillness and instant readiness, of honoring the past while protecting the present. The attackers saw oppression in the guard's stance, but Harrington countered, "This uniform has been soaked with the blood of real soldiers, men who died wearing it." His words a bridge between ceremony and combat. Ashford added, "He caught your knife because he stood on battlefields," a reminder that such skills are earned through hardship, not bestowed by tradition alone. Together, they embodied an unbroken line of service, a legacy that stretches beyond Horse Guard's walls to every soldier who's faced danger for others. The incident left a question hanging in the air. What does it mean to stand guard? It's not just the posture or the polish. It's the quiet courage to act when chaos strikes, the resolve to uphold values others might dismiss. As tourists dispersed with stories of valor, Harrington's silhouette remained, a symbol not of monarchy, but of a deeper truth. True guardianship is forged in sacrifice, tested by fire, and preserved through an unyielding commitment to duty that echoes across generations. As we age, life often hands us unexpected challenges, moments that test our resolve. Much like the knife thrown at Sergeant Harrington, his story teaches us that discipline and preparation, built over years, can steady us when chaos strikes. For those of us over 50, it's a reminder that our experiences, whether raising families, serving our country, or weathering hard times, are not just memories, they're strengths we carry forward. Colonel Ashford, at 70, showed that vigilance and purpose don't retire. We can still protect what matters, be it loved ones or values we hold dear. The attacker's anger highlights how misunderstandings divide us, but Harrington's calm response offers a lesson. Standing firm with dignity often speaks louder than conflict. In our daily lives, this means facing disputes with patience, drawing on the wisdom we've earned. We may not wear uniforms, but we guard our own legacies. Through stories we share, lessons we teach, or quiet acts of care. True strength lies not in avoiding trials, but in meeting them with the grace of a lifetime's worth of grit. Like those guards, we stand watch over what endures, proving age is no barrier to courage,